to do. Again, reducing all those different problems. Okay? Identify waste and minimize overhead, reclaiming over-provisioned resources. One of the charts that we're going to show you is very fundamental that we see in almost every one of our customers when we do a proof of concept is the amount of infrastructure that is sitting idle, that we've provisioned based on what the application owner or business owner believes is going to be the demand or load. In reality, it's much less. And so being able to, one, identify that, to be able to right-size that through a process to get us back to the most cost-effective infrastructure. And then forecasting. How are these areas growing so that I can make the right purchasing decisions? If I have waste in one part, can I reuse that? If I'm growing in another, how do I make sure that I'm making the right purchasing decisions to do that? All of that information becomes at your fingertips. And as we looked and talked about accelerating moving to the cloud, so speeding up identification, right-sizing before and after workload placements. We have a very rich set of dashboards and reports to help you identify, what do I have? How is it configured? How is it performing? How should it look if I was to right-size it on-prem? How could that look if I actually then started moving that into the cloud? What are my actual cloud rate cards so I can start to understand that cost structure? So very rich set of ways of being able to understand where you're at. And then once I'm in the cloud, what is that? How is it behaving? How is it trending? Being able to understand all of the metrics, both in the cloud and on-prem. And one of the newer areas that we've expanded into is this area of what I'll call attacks or malicious actions that are being occurred in environments with increasing regularity. The stories around ransomware is rampant. And the impact on organizations when that does occur is tremendous. Not only the near-term impact in terms of loss of access to information, time to recover, potential permanent loss of data, or even the financial penalties if you agree to actually pay the ransomware, but the brand impact when these stories get out. If I have data that's lost or people believe that I am not secure within my organization, people lose trust. And so being able to have the right tools to quickly identify when these events are occurring, to minimize their impact. And so our ability to monitor the transactions or the events that are going on within the infrastructure, to be able to actually look at the files and how they're being manipulated and report on that data can dramatically limit that impact. And we'll actually show some ways that we're able to do that. And what's really important about this is that this product is so simple to set up. This is a hosted environment. So Cloud Insights lives in the cloud. What's required of our customers is to set up a minimal sized VM inside their environment, which will communicate with the different infrastructure elements that they have. That information then is collected and then is pushed out. So there's never access from the cloud back into your environment. This is always contained from your side out into the cloud repository. So all of that information is getting streamed up into the cloud, and you will then have access through your web interface to see all of that information. And so we'll now jump to the actual product demonstration. So Brandon, let me stop my side and we can jump into, I apologize, I've lost my mouse. And I'm going to stop sharing. If you want to gain control.
So, okay, I thought maybe, oh, there it goes. Oh, we don't normally use Cisco WebEx, so I wasn't sure why I wasn't able to share. So I'm good now. Give me 1 second. Can you guys see my screen?
I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. If there's anybody that's having any issues, please put that in the chat. So hi, everybody. I'm sorry.
Is that in full screen or is that in?
This is full screen now. How about that? It's just a little bit bigger.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Brennan Coates. I work for NetApp as a solutions architect. I've been with NetApp now for about 14 years, and I've worked in multiple different roles across the company. So Cloud Insights is just one of my specialties, but it's what I'm focused on at this point. I'm going to show you guys a lot about what he specifically talked about and a lot of the use cases that we see customers are the most interested in. As I'm sitting here on this screen right now, and this is one of our sandbox environments, and they're constantly playing with it and messing around with it. So there's no telling what you're going to see. So keep an eye out for some fun. But this screen right here, everything in Cloud Insights is what we call dashboards, and dashboards are completely configurable to however you want to view it. So I'm going to run through 3 specific use cases that customers like. The first one being monitoring, so like how you would monitor, a couple examples with Cloud Insights. The second one being troubleshooting, so some troubleshooting examples, and then the last one being cost optimization. I've got 2 examples of each of those, and then I'll share some extra things at the end if there's time available. So the first topic on monitoring, a lot of our customers have applications or specific things that are running in their environment, especially from a storage administrator's point of view, that they really have no clue what makes up that application and what it means if latency is a certain thing, or, one application might be okay running at 20 milliseconds response time. Another application might need sub-millisecond response time. So being able to understand from an easy view, single pane of glass, what's going on in a specific application is important, because then you're going to know when your customers are going to be complaining or if there's issues going on. So this dashboard that I'm showing you right now is an example of an application, what we like to call an application dashboard. This is a specific custom application that the customer would be running, and it's configured, customized for this customer, where if there's a certain threshold that's being hit, that's a problem, it's going to show up red. If there's a warning, it's going to show up orange. And if everything is cool, it's going to show up green. So when you log in the morning, you want to check out that application. Maybe it's one of your top 2 applications, a single pane of glass to be able to view that. You can, like I said, all of these, what we call widgets, are completely customizable. You can move them around. You can customize them how you want to see fit. But the key here is understanding, hey, is my application running? Yeah, it is, because I've got 230 user sessions. Am I having slowness? Looks like this is red because 2.72 seconds, that must be high. So being able to understand that at a high level. So that's one example of monitoring. But Cloud Insights does more than just on-prem monitoring. We also monitor in the cloud and in multiple clouds, and the ability to be able to see all of your assets across that. You can show them in unique dashboards or show them in individual dashboards. So being able to look and see where are my busiest EC2 instances. This one's specific to Amazon. It's one that we built, but you can customize them in any way that you'd like. Where am I seeing that IOPS over capacity? We call it IO density. Are they where I expect them to be? Just a kind of a clear view to be able to monitor your environment. So these 2 are just examples of how we can monitor. I'm going to move into troubleshooting next. So Cloud Insights allows you to set up what we call performance policies. And these performance policies, again, are really simple to use and easy to set up. This list right here is specifically some of the violations that have been hit in our sandbox environment. I'm going to open up a specific policy that we created just to kind of show you guys some of the things you can configure. All this stuff at the top, we can name the policy, and then what you can do is set rules where, for example, if my latency is over 10 milliseconds or my IOPS is over 50 IOPS, or you can add multiple different types of thresholds. There's lots of different use cases, and it depends on what you're monitoring. Am I monitoring storage? Am I monitoring compute? Am I monitoring network? Am I looking for port errors? All different kinds of things. And you can set up these to where all of these conditions are true or just any of the conditions are true. And once you set that up, you're going to begin to get alerts based on when these violations are hit. So once a violation is hit, it's going to show up in this list. You can also set it to notify you. And this is really good use case for when you're trying to figure out what's going on in my environment. Can I fix a problem before it comes? Is my customer aware of what's going on? So what I did from that policy violations page is I clicked on a specific asset that had hit a policy violation. And here we have pages for every single asset that you're monitoring, whether it be a virtual machine, whether it be a switch port, whether it be a storage node, whether it be a volume. Every asset has its own little page where you can get all the information that you want about that. Now, these are all this box right here is all information that we've automatically pulled in with Cloud Insights, but there's other information that you can pull in, what we like to call annotations. So any asset you can assign it to an application. Like, for example, maybe this virtual machine is part of my Exchange environment. You can also set business units. Maybe it's owned by HR. You can also set where it lives, like in a data center. And a lot of these annotations we can pull in from things like ServiceNow. We have connectors into these things where you're not where you're not manually entering in this information. But back to troubleshooting specifically, once you're in an asset page, you can see one of the unique things with Cloud Insights, it's correlations between the assets. So right now, I'm only showing this in a box, which is my asset page. I'm only showing the latency and the IOPS over the past whatever window I've got. And I can zoom in and zoom out on that window. And I can also add other types of graphs. Like, for example, if we care about CPU, we could put that on there now. Now, if I want to be able to see what other assets correlate with this, because just looking at this graph, I can see that I've got maybe some peaks here, but what does that mean? I don't know. I can look at other Cloud Insights automatically pulls in what it sees as degraded, what it sees as greedy, and what it sees as correlated assets. And you might not have any idea that they could be correlated, but this pulls it up for you. It assigns a percentage of how much it correlates, and you can add that to the same graph and be able to look at it all at one time. So when you think about troubleshooting and trying to figure out your needle in your haystack and who's the real issue, you can easily see here correlated. Okay, if I were to show you a better example than our sandbox, you could potentially see both of these spiking at the same time, or maybe the IOPS. I am sorry, I do not know. Goodness gracious. Hold on just a second. My desktop just went crazy. One minute.
So I think when you look at, this capability, being able to combine the business language, and Brennan talked about all those annotations. So think about being able to understand, these applications and these locations with these characteristics. Very quickly, it allows me to do things like saying, hey, this is the priority level of this. When that event triggers, I know how to prioritize that. I know attributes about that allow me to respond differently than if I just get a random, I've got a rise in latency on a specific application. So it really empowers the operator or the end user to kind of not only troubleshoot the problem, but to understand what's going on, the impact to the business, to really allow them to make better decisions on what they're doing.
Thanks, Dave. So that's a little bit about troubleshooting with alerting. You can also use troubleshooting with application dashboards. So this dashboard is an example of a specific application and what all of the assets that make up that application. So for example, this is our MongoDB application. We can see that it has 2 VMs, they're powered on. We can also see how much memory our application is using. And then we can get alerts based on that application. We see an issue here where the latency is high. We can easily search for other applications. You can set parameters in here where you can pull up, for example, other applications that we have. And once we search for that, the page will refresh and give us that application and all the graphs according to those. So again, being able to easily troubleshoot what's going on in an application and see from a 10,000 foot view where my issues are. So that's my second example on troubleshooting. Lastly, I'm going to move into cost optimization. All right, so when you think about cost and saving money and think about on-prem, knowing where your assets are being utilized, knowing where your assets are being underutilized, and I'm going to show you something after we get through the demo. I'm going to show you some pieces of how you can look at your environment and optimize those assets. But this is a dashboard that shows you where top memory utilization is, all things dealing with CPU, understanding where your heavy hitters are. And one thing I didn't mention before is all these blue hyperlinks are clickable, and those are going to take me to the asset page that I showed you before when you want to see more information on that specific asset. So again, all these are customizable, fit to what you need, and we also have tons of default dashboards out of the gate, so it can get you going very quickly.
You know, I think what's important there when she keeps saying highly customizable, think of it as, you know, the view that I need to see based on what my role or responsibility is. So if I'm coming into a cost view or an application view, you know, if I'm a senior executive, my dashboard will be looking at the same data, but the organization of the widgets, what I actually want to see, is going to be different because I have different questions. I have different, you know, timescales that I'm probably interested in looking at. So each persona is going to be able to have the information organized the way that they need it to answer the questions that are, you know, pertinent to their business responsibilities.
So the last piece on cost optimization is the fact that we can monitor, again, not just on-prem, but in the cloud. And a lot of our customers are focused on how do I get to the cloud, but they're not exactly thinking about what do I do once I get there. And we mentioned orphaned assets. Another thing is just simply having VMs that are out there powered off, because you know that powered off VMs are free from a compute perspective, but from a storage perspective, you're still paying for that. So being able to get alerts and understand from a dashboard perspective of where your resources are in the cloud, how they're being used, are you being charged what you expect you're being charged? How much money could you save if you simply just removed pieces in the cloud? Should I be right sizing some of my machines? This, you know, one user asked for a higher level compute. Can I change his compute? Can I change his tier? So all these questions can be answered very easily with a dashboard that can be created in moments. I want to touch on what Dave mentioned earlier about our anomaly detection engine. This is a feature of Cloud Insights. When you have the premium version of Cloud Insights, it comes at no cost. And this tool allows us to be able to protect data, like protect your data with actionable intelligence. And it actually guards against insider threats. So you get visibility and control on all of your corporate data, whether it be on-prem or in the cloud. And it specifically protects against malicious or compromised users. We use advanced learning and anomaly detection to be able to tell, is a user accessing files that he's never accessed before? Is a user encrypting a significant number of files? Is a user deleting a significant user of files? And these are users that you know, and it might be the guy sitting beside you, and it might not be malicious, he might be compromised. So this tool gives you alerts on those. The alerts are automated based on our intelligence. And once you get those alerts, you can click on and go into each one to understand. For example, this specific attack was affected one volume, so it could affect multiple volumes. And again, everything is clickable here, so we can understand what's going on. But this user happened to encrypt 5,200 files around 4 a.m. this morning. And this is real data We've generated some of it, but the tool did pick up on our generated data of what we were doing in the back end. It gives you information on the user and whatnot, so you can go figure out what's going on. And also, you can set it to automatically do things like take a snapshot and to be able to protect any further damage that this user could create. One more thing to note about Cloud Insights is it's software as a service. So every Thursday morning, we push out updates. Everybody has the latest and greatest. There's no, I need to patch this server so I can do this upgrade or any type of painful upgrades. Everybody has the best. So you're going to be constantly seeing new features come in on a weekly basis that you might not have had before. And we publish all those in the release notes.
Yeah, so I think, Brendan, one of the things that I think is really important about what's going on is we're not just collecting data and then saying, oh, this, hey, when you get above a certain threshold, we're going to trigger that. This is using machine learning. It's starting to understand what is normal behavior and what is abnormal behavior. So we can detect much more subtle type of incidents than someone encrypted 5,400. That kind of jumps out at you as maybe that's probably something you'd want to look into. But there's oftentimes much more subtle events that are going on. Attackers are being much more creative in how they're starting to take over. So rather than I'm going to jump in and start doing a massive attack, they could do a drip attack where they're slowly starting to creep into different areas. And then once that starts to take hold, then they can actually do more malicious events. So being able to start to understand that, what that behavior could be, and being able to understand what are some of the remediation steps that can be taken to eliminate the impact of those events. So this is something that, as we talk to organization, is just becoming very top of mind, the impact of these malicious events and, what they can do to prepare, to not be responding after the fact. And unfortunately, a lot of the customers that we've been talking to, it's already happened to, and we're coming in after the fact and showing them what we could do. I think more organizations should be looking at this and thinking about, how do I prepare for this before it actually, I have that impact.
So the last piece that I want to show you guys, I'm going to need to change my sharing to pull up. There we go. Make this a little bigger. So this is data that's pulled out of Cloud Insights, and there's no work to be able to generate what I'm showing you here. But when we're, again, back to that topic on understanding what we have on-prem, understanding what it's going to cost to get to the cloud, that's really top of mind for our customers right now. We're talking to several customers who are looking for this type of capability to understand that. And it's a big part of it is a lot of times we'll do the assessments where we show, okay, here's where you are and here's what it's going to cost and whatnot. But you have to remember that's fluid. I mean, from a daily basis, it's our utilization, our customers' utilization is changing. So being able to understand that in a fluid way and not just a snapshot way. These are some examples of graphs of what is currently being monitored in our sandbox environment. So this screen actually gives us a really good idea. And I like to highlight this bottom right graph here, a snapshot visual of how am I utilizing my resources. And the fact that most of my resources are down here in the bottom left tells me that I'm heavily underutilizing my resources and that I should be working on right sizing. And for right sizing for customers, whether they're going to the cloud or not, it's not something that you flip a switch and you're done. It's usually an incremental approach where you're doing a little at a time. So this allows you to be able to come back in, pull this data, and be able to see the progress you're making as you go along. So just another view, what we do is we have analytics on the back end that can be able to actually automatically show you what the right size would look like. If we're looking here on the left, these are the current machine sizes and IO densities. And on the right is what our analytics have decided is what it would look like from an optimized standpoint. And again, this is fluid, so it can change. It's not something that you have to configure. All your data is automatically pulled in by Cloud Insights. As you right size, this is going to change. In the middle here, we can see the as is compared with the optimized and see that difference.
So I think what's really important
sorry.
about that, these reports is, this is, Brendan's saying, this is kind of an ongoing process. So that first step, discover what's in the environment, run this report, and immediately starting to see this information to kind of give you some ideas. Well, how am I presently configured? What does that mean? And then looking at this ideal state to say, okay, that kind of makes sense. If I could shift the infrastructure to that behavior, but I'm probably not going to do that overnight. I'm not going to automatically just now start moving every application. The other aspect is, how frequently does this data change? And so as we soak more information, we'll probably have a better picture. So we'll be able to paint a optimized view within a couple of days of turning on the product and starting to collect that information. But over several weeks, that picture may start to change. Over several months, you may start to get even a better picture of what's going on. So being able to start off with let me go look at some low-hanging fruit, let me go start to optimize that, let me put it into this new configuration, and then over time, seeing how that develops, and then improving on your processes. How do I identify? How do I remediate? How do I then move on to the next step? And so these reports can easily get integrated into how you are, architecting your overall operational, best practices.
And so another question that with the same data that customers ask is, what is it going to cost me when I move to the cloud? And it doesn't really do a lot of good to understand what it would cost you based on how you're using your environment now, because most of our customers will need to right size before they move to the cloud. So in this screen, what I'm showing here is, this is as is what my estimated monthly cost would be, which is pretty crazy. And after optimize, based on how we calculate the optimize, you would see that that price would be $118,000 a month with those savings. So we show you based on as is and optimize. So then customers can get a really good idea of, is moving to the cloud a good option for me? And help answer that age-old question, what is it going to cost? Because it's a surprise bill every month for most customers, and being able to understand that, especially in large environments, is key. And any of these reports can be customized to specific environments. So you don't have to look at your entire environment. Maybe you want to just look at a specific data center. Maybe you want to look at a specific business unit. All that can be done with annotations and automatically, and not something you have to manually configure. The important part of the software is that it's really easy to use, and you're up and running. If the firewall ports are open and all that good stuff that you need, you're up and running in 30 minutes and collecting data. It's that simple.
So Brendan, one of the questions that I've seen is, you're showing Azure. So is this the same for all different public clouds, or is this specific to Azure?
So we have the ability to put in specific rate cards. In fact, we can customize these based on a customer's specific rate card, and then we can show the customer how to edit that and times when their rate cards change. This example was done specifically on Azure's rate card. So again, they're completely customizable, and we offer that service to customers, or we can teach you guys how to fish and be able to offer that to customers as well.
Okay.
Were there other questions that you've seen so far?
No, not yet. So if there are other questions, please make sure to ask any questions, and we'll be sure to answer those across any part of the product as we get to the close here.
We did have a question come in regarding, does Cloud Insights require any agents be installed?
So the answer is it depends. So we have what we call our base collectors, and perhaps, do you want to share your screen on your PowerPoint, Dave, where you had that slide that has the ports and everything, that like the
Yeah, let me,
So then I'll explain.
okay, let me share that back out. I'll just have to find my share again. Okay. Are you seeing that?
Yes. Okay, perfect. So we have what we call base collectors. For example, your storage arrays, most of the storage arrays, and he also showed a picture of all of our collectors that are built-in collectors. Any of these base collectors are going to require what we call that remote acquisition unit in the center of your screen. So the remote acquisition unit is a VM that has a little install package on there, and it's the one that pulls the information from your hypervisor, from your storage array, or your cloud provider. There's nothing loaded on any of those items. So you can collect pretty much anything normal without an agent. It's agentless. Now, if you want specific application monitoring, like let's say, or node based monitoring, like you want to know specifics on a hardware node, that is when you would require an agent. So that's why I'm saying it depends, because most things you're going to want to monitor are agentless. And if I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. Like if you look at this list, there is kind of a distinguish. Like if I want to look at my MongoDB, then I'm going to have to talk to that MongoDB through an agent. That's the telegraph that she was mentioning. Any of these infrastructure elements. So if I'm talking to a NetApp or a Dell or any kind of physical device, we have these native data collectors which are agentless. And we the normal process to be able to collect that information.
Yep. So just because you don't see a box, like when you go to add data collectors, there's all these different boxes you can click on. And in fact, Dave, if you want to, here, I can't take over from you for some reason.
Yeah, I'll stop it again.
And I'll show you guys the data collector page and literally how easy it is.
I gotta stop sharing. I apologize.
It's still sharing.
No, I know. I'm trying to stop sharing.
So for something like a Dell box or NetApp box or VMware, you just need the IP address of the box that you're connecting to and the credentials. That's it. So I'll show you that. Yeah. So this is our data collector page on our sandbox. And for example, we'll just go to add a NetApp box. And this could be, we have, you can add your cloud volumes on tap. You can add your on-prem NetApp boxes. We just need, this name is the name. I mean, you can call this ABC123, it doesn't matter, but usually I'd recommend that you call it what it is. And then you select your acquisition unit here based on which acquisition unit you want. And when you have acquisition units, you can run everything from one acquisition unit. Reasons you'd want more than one is if you have latency in between where your acquisition unit lives and where the device you're monitoring lives. So if you have a data center in Asia and one in the US, you probably want 2 acquisition units. So again, you name it, you pick your acquisition unit, which is that lightweight server that I told you about that's going to actually do the pushing of the data to the cloud, and then your IP address, username, password, and that's it. And that's the same for vSphere and most of the infrastructure data collectors that we can speak directly to and get the information. If you have things that you want to monitor that are off the wall, you can do that too. You don't have to have a box for it in our data collector page. You can actually use anything that we can talk to over an API, we can get data out of it, and we can push that up to Cloud Insights. And if you guys are interested in understanding more about that, you can use like an open source collector like Telegraph to be able to pull that information. So you can pull crazy things. You can pull things from, if a coffee maker can speak an API and you can pull how many cups of coffee you're drinking a day, you can put that in Cloud Insights. And once you get the data in, It's going to look just like all the other data, and you can monitor it just like you're monitoring anything else.
Any other questions? Brennan, maybe you want to just go out to cloud.netapp.com.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you guys have more questions, or if you have customers that are interested in learning more, cloud.netapp.com is really our landing page for everything cloud. We call this Cloud Central. And if you're interested in learning more about Cloud Insights, if you go up to product and go to Cloud Insights, that's our landing page for Cloud Insights. They'll give you kind of a highlight of what we talked about today, as well as explain the pricing. Of course, they can purchase this directly through you guys with discounting, and there's discounting for depending on tiers, depending on how much they buy. And then they can also request a trial. And we get notified when our customers request a trial. So if it's one of your customers, we work with you guys to be able to help the customer with that trial, teach them how to fish and whatnot. Because I'm not billable, so I'm here for customer success, and I want to make sure they're getting everything they need. So I'll log in, help them build dashboards, help them get it set up, all that good stuff.
Right. So Brennan, on the 30-day trial, simply come out here, contact your rep. Any other suggestions that you have for folks that
So
they may
if you have a customer that's interested in a 30-day trial, I would recommend you don't hit the button. I mean, if they're doing it on their own, that's great, and we'll reach back out. But I would recommend that you sync with us first, and we can give you the information that they're going to need to get the acquisition unit set up. Because what we run into a lot of times is customers' environments are so locked down, the server they're using can't even talk over port 443 to the internet, right? So the key is don't waste 2 weeks waiting for them to get a VM provision for them to use. I would recommend that we could send you, there's like 3 links that I would send, and all this available publicly, but the acquisition unit server requirements, and then the port requirements, which is just that 443 port. So not anything crazy. And once they have all that available, and if they need a proxy, and what their proxy information would be if they can't talk over 443. So having that available and that server available, then day one, when they click off that trial, we can walk them through setup. And I'm happy to do the setup for them while we're over a WebEx, because I'm telling you, if they've got it where they're supposed to have it with permissions, I will have them serving data in 15 minutes. So it's that simple. So that's what I would recommend. But if they started in advance, that's okay. We can get a 30-day extension with the customer can actually request it through the tool. So it's not end of the world. And also, we recommend that when you have customers using it, that you highly encourage them to not just report on storage, report on all the assets, at least something from all the assets, report on virtualization, report on your networking, because it's the correlations that really set us apart from our competitors, and being able to get all those different pieces. Report on something in the cloud and show them all how they can monitor from one pane of glass.
Yep. So for the customers who are on the call, I think all that applies to you, whether, how you're working or looking at this, but, please feel free to, contact your account team. They'll get a hold of us, and we can spend some time doing a deeper dive of what we presented here today. Obviously, this is just meant to be a kind of a high overview of the value of the product, but I strongly suggest this is something that can add value into how you're looking at your environment, how you're taking better control of your overall infrastructure. It complements the tools that you're going to be utilizing today. It just provides that higher level overview across that. So while we can eliminate products that you have, oftentimes we're going to complement specifically a lot of the device managers that you're already utilizing. This will complement and provide you more value in what you're already doing. So
we have another 5 minutes here, David and Brennan.
Yeah.
So we did have a couple questions come in.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to kind of shoot these off to you guys now, and hopefully we can get them all in. So one came in that said, we have OCI on-prem now. Can the
Yes.
licenses be converted to use in the cloud product? How is this licensed?
Hmm. So OCI is a separate product, and OCI continues to be a licensed product. We do have some promotions going on today where we can provide access to CI as part of your renewal. So if you are renewing your software, we can get you access to CI at no charge as part of that renewal. So if you are a OCI customer, and what we find is that there's going to be cases where you may want to continue to use OCI and CI. The goal, I think longer term would be that you would pick one of the two products. Do you want an on-prem product, or are you looking for a SaaS product? So we will see that. But if you do have specific questions, I cover all of New England in terms of OCI and Cloud Insights, so I'm happy to talk in more specific detail about your specific instance.
Awesome. And then we had another one that said, I'm imagining because Cloud Insights is SaaS, updates usually include additions to the data collector list. Is that correct?
That is correct. So really, updates kind of come in three forms. There's new feature functions. So the base product itself will be enhanced, and all of a sudden there'll be a new capability that wasn't there before. We're also updating new dashboards and new reports. So access to download those dashboards and reports comes out on those regular scheduled basis. And then the third one is data collection. So we're constantly adding new access to elements, different data, whether that's the Telegraph side or whether that's our native data collection.
Okay, thanks again. And then one other one, the price is per monitoring unit, regardless of the number of events records sent to the cloud.
Correct. So managed unit is a measurement of capacity and hosts. So for every 4 terabytes would equal 1 managed unit, and for every 2 physical or virtual hosts would equal 1 managed unit. So we would look at those 2 metrics inside your environment. We would come up with the number of managed units, and that's the only cost that you would pay.
And then managed units, what is that defined as? Is that a VM?
So it would either be a physical host or a virtual host or capacity. So we look at those, kind of hosts and capacity, 4-to-1 ratio on capacity. So for every 4 terabytes, it's 1 managed unit. And for every 2 virtual or physical hosts, it's 1 managed unit.
Yeah, think of it as a terabyte costs you a quarter of a managed unit, and a server of any kind costs you 50 cents of a managed unit. For me, it's easier to think of that way.
Okay, awesome. And then one final question we have that we'll sneak in right before we end here is, what type of external integration points are there? Can Cloud Insights execute problem resolution via automation Ansible, say with a ServiceNow connection?
Yes. So that's a great point. So there's, we've mentioned several times through the presentation, how do we integrate with, whether it's a CMDB or a trouble ticketing system? Those are all done through our API interface. So we can push or pull information into the repository that will then trigger external events. So whether that is a workflow inside of ServiceNow as an example, we have that capability. There are actually, I'll say, connectors that are out of the box that come with the product. And then there are service offerings for what I'll call more complex integrations that we've worked with a myriad of customers to define what that integration point is, what action they're looking for, and how do they, make that workflow happen.
Okay, awesome. So we are right at 1 o'clock. I want to, from the Echo Store team, say thank you to Brennan and David for coming in and helping us out here and helping you guys kind of get a basic understanding of how Cloud Insights work. From the Echo Store perspective, we'll be following up with you guys. with a recording of this webinar. There was a little hitch, so the first 5 minutes or so unfortunately weren't recorded, but the majority of it is. So we'll follow up with this recording and also try to follow up with you guys to kind of see how Cloud Insights can work for you. Additionally, expect that Grubhub gift card in your email at some point tomorrow, just as an appreciation for joining us during your lunch hour. I know, with kids being back in school, lunch hours are a little crazier now than maybe they were in the past. So much appreciated to all for attending, and to the folks from NetApp for coming on and showing us, a little something about Cloud Insights and how it can help. So thanks to
Well, thanks for
everyone.
hosting us. Yep, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brennan. And we'll end it on that. Thanks, everybody.
All right, have a great day, all. Bye now.
Yep. Bye.